Welcome to the Sharkpreneur podcast with Kevin Harrington and Seth Greene. Kevin Harrington is the inventor of the infomercial, one of the original sharks from the hit TV show Shark Tank, and has generated over $5 billion in TV and digital direct response sales. Seth Greene is the world's first trusted authority on cutting-edge direct response marketing, a best-selling author, and the only 3-time Marketer of the Year nominee. On the podcast, Kevin and Seth interview sharkpreneurs who share straight talk on what it takes to explode your business.
49 faces looked to him in triumph. Over the last 12 months, they had each taken turns and promoted his business for a week at a time, driving over $987,342 in revenue. What if you had a network of 50 centers of influence who promoted your business every week for a year? Grab your copy of the #1 Amazon best-selling book, The Ultimate Guide to Growing Your Business with a Podcast, at 33% off the Amazon price by going to ultimatepodcastbook.com. Again, that website for 33% off the Amazon price is ultimatepodcastbook.com. Welcome to the podcast. This is your host, Seth Greene. I am super excited for today's interview. I get to interview Douglas Noll, the author of his fourth book, De-Escalate, How to Calm an Angry Person in 90 Seconds or Less. He's had a successful career as a trial lawyer and then evolved to become a peacemaker, hence the book. He's an award-winning author, teacher, trainer, and highly experienced mediator. We're going to talk about all of this and how you can de-escalate an angry person, including your child, your spouse, a coworker, in 90 seconds or less. I will tell you, it works. I have tried it in my own life since reading the book, and I'm even more excited to have Doug on. Doug, thank you so much for joining us.
Seth, this is really an honor for me too. Thank you so much.
It's all mine, but thank you. Let's go back in time a little bit. For folks who haven't read the book yet, they absolutely should, and we'll make sure to tell them where they can go get it and learn all about you at the end. You were a very successful trial lawyer, litigator. How did you go from that to what inspired going from that to peacemaking?
It was a journey. It wasn't something that just happened overnight. The very short story is that I took up the martial arts in the mid-'80s, was awarded my secondary black belt around my 40th birthday in 1990. My teacher told me, go learn Tai Chi, study Tai Chi as a martial art. So I did. And Tai Chi has two paradoxes. The first is the softer you are, the stronger you are. And the second paradox is the more vulnerable you are, the more powerful you are. Soft to be strong, vulnerable to be powerful. And eventually these paradoxes soaked into my soul until one day I was in a courtroom in the late 90s cross-examining somebody, and I thought to me, what the heck am I doing in here? So it was after that trial. I had a river trip planned up in Idaho, whitewater trip, and spent the week thinking about how many people I'd really served, came to the conclusion that I hadn't served many people at all, that I wasn't going to do this anymore, didn't know what I was going to do, came back to my office, drove down out of the mountains to my office and heard a public service announcement for a new master's degree in peacemaking and conflict studies. So at 48 years old, already a 3/4-time law professor and full-time trial lawyer, I became a full-time graduate student again. And it changed my life. And ultimately, in 2000, I left the practice of law and became a peacemaker. And that's the very short story of how I did it. So if you think about it, it was really about a 15-year plus journey.
And the longer version is in the books, obviously. So let's talk about that. Peacemaker isn't normally a job title. What does that mean to you?
So I learned all about human conflict and in my master's program, and I learned about it from a whole bunch of different disciplines. And I also got really interested in why we're so ineffective at making peace. And that led me into neuroscience and studying what's going on in the brain. And ultimately, I figured out that there are people like me who can walk into conflicts where people are really enmeshed and engaged, the fight to be right. We all know what that is. And really help them calm down, sort out their problems, and find peace. And that turned out to be my calling in life.
Well, and what a beautiful calling it is. So when did you first realize, when was the first time, if you remember, that you tried this way of doing it and were like, oh my God, it worked? Do you remember that?
Oh yeah. It's like yesterday. I was engaged to mediate a dispute between a divorced couple. $18,000 was at stake, but they'd each spent $50,000 in attorney's fees trying to destroy each other. And I watched them scream and yell at each other, vile obscenities, thinking, what the heck am I going to do with this? And out of the blue, somewhere, the thought came to me, listen to the emotions. And so that's what I did. I stopped them. I had one party start telling his story, and then I had her name what he's feeling, not what he was saying, what he was feeling. And within minutes, she became empowered, and he stopped raging. 3.5 hours later, he looked up at her with tears streaming down his cheeks, saying, that's the first time you've listened to me in 25 years. They settled the case and walked out holding hands. And I sat there with my jaw on the floor saying, what did I just do?
That's some serious Jedi mind trick.
Pretty serious Jedi mindset. Well, I knew what I'd done, but I didn't know why it worked. So I started playing around with it in other cases, and I got the same basic results. And then 2 years later, we found out. A brain scanning study came out of Matthew Lieberman's lab at UCLA. The study's called Putting Feelings into Words, which you can get on the internet. And basically what Lieberman and his colleagues did is they would put people into a brain scanning machine, show them pictures of distressed faces, and then ask them to name their emotions. What were they feeling when they were watching these distressed faces? And they watched what happened in the brain. And what they saw was that parts of the brain associated with negative emotion, primarily the amygdala and other related limbic system structures, quieted down. And at the same time, only a single brain area was activated, the right ventrolateral prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for emotional self-control. In plain English, when you name what somebody's feeling, they calm down automatically. They can't help it. And it's hardwired into every human brain. It's just this innate thing we have that, and nobody's ever talked about it before. As far as I know, I'm the only one that teaches this stuff. And it's amazing how it works.
It is absolutely fascinating. You have since evolved the process to include more than just naming the feelings.
Right.
There's a whole step-by-step method in the book. And when did you first start taking this to other people? And I mean, you're revolutionizing the prison system. Like, talk about that journey.
All right. So Lieberman's study came out in 2007. Now I'm mediating, practicing, using these techniques in high conflict situations, getting great results. I'm going to conferences, teaching my colleagues and peers about this. They're giving me a lot of pushback. What do you mean, name emotions? That's all BS, right? So I get a letter in August. I get a phone call from my colleague and dear friend Laurel Coffer, who's a mediator in Los Angeles. I live about 4 hours north of Los Angeles in the mountains. And she calls and reads this letter to me. And the letter was written by a woman who was serving a life sentence without possibility of parole, who was asking if we could come in and train the lifers in the largest women's prison in the world, here in California, how to become mediators and peacemakers to stop the violence. And Laurel said, what do you think? Well, 8 months later, there we were, standing in front of 15 women, ages 30 to 65, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, and we began teaching them how to become mediators and peacemakers. And the first thing we taught them was how to name emotions. And the results were just simply phenomenal, transformative, beyond our wildest expectation of what happened. By 6 weeks into the program, we were in a prison. At that time, I held 3,600 women. It was designed to hold 2,100 women, so it was way overcrowded. We had 800 women on a waiting list when you get trained. And so that led, the success in that, we were there for 3 years. The success in that prison led us into men's prisons, which then led us to getting grants. And pretty soon we were working in the most violent, darkest prisons in California, particularly Corcoran State Prison in the D Yard, which is the supermax part of the prison, teaching gang members, people coming out of violent gangs, how to become peacemakers. It was quite the project. And for 3 years, I was teaching 100 feet from Charles Manson's cell.
That is absolutely incredible. I think before every chapter in the book, there's a letter from someone
That's right.
saying how this transformed their life and how if they had learned it earlier, they never would have landed in prison in the first place.
That's right. We heard that over and over and over again.
So
It'll,
let's dive in a little bit. We want people to get the book, but I want to give them a teaser. So you talk about the first step in the process is naming emotions. You call that something in the book. What do you call that? And what's a simplified version of how to do that?
the technique, the technical name for the skill is called affect labeling. And I've tried to explain this in a whole bunch of different ways, but I think where I come down today is two words. Just learn two words. You feel. And then what you need to put at the end of you feel are emotions. And you only need a few. Anger, you're angry, you're frustrated, you feel disrespected, you feel unappreciated, unsupported, you don't feel heard, and you're really worried and concerned and anxious. Now there's a whole lot more, but if you just start with that, you feel angry, frustrated, disrespected, unheard, unappreciated, unsupported, and you're anxious. That will get you through 99.9% of all the problems you'll ever see in your life. And that's all you have to do. So it's Seth, man, you're really angry. You're pissed off. You're frustrated. You feel completely disrespected, and it disgusts you. And everybody's ignoring you. You feel invisible. And you feel unappreciated and unsupported. And you're really scared and worried and anxious about this.
Yes.
And that's the reaction you get. Yes. People automatically relax. And that's how, that little right there, that's how long it takes. I mean, tell me what happened to your 13-year-old.
So she is our more challenging child of the three, the youngest, and she gets in what I would label from my lifetime of work with Tony Robbins of unresourceful states on a frequent basis. And depending on the state, like my wife, who is a social worker and a trained therapist, but still her mother, will fight with her and they will get into a conflict about it. And I have been guilty of doing the same thing. And then the last couple times since reading your book, I have said, you know what? Don't escalate. Don't be like, you're being rude to her. You're being disrespectful to your mother. You're pissing her off. You need to be better. Like, none of that apparently helps. It
No.
just makes it worse. So it said, like, you're really frustrated right now. She's like, yes. You know, you're feeling unheard. Yes. And magically, then they start talking about their actual feelings.
And they calm down.
Yes.
It's that simple.
Now, obviously, there's more to the book than just affect labeling, and there's more to the process than that. But I think one of the things that people are probably, in my amateur assessment, probably most challenged by is in a heated situation, or at least when one person is heated. Um, you tell us ignore the words, state the feelings. When someone, and this worked wonderfully. I had this the other day, it was a week ago, and my wife and I were preparing to do a live broadcast, and she was mad at me because I was telling her, like, she was futzing with the thing, the camera, and I was like, honey, just go live, don't worry about it. And my mistake. And she got pissed because she was like, I'll be late. If I'm going to be late, I'm going to get this right. That's what she was thinking, what she was thinking. But it pushed the button of, you're rushing me.
Right.
And she started to get mad. And then I was like, oh, you're feeling very angry right now. Yes, I am. And then I did a couple more and she kept saying, yes, I am. And she started to come down. And then I was like, honey, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to make you feel that. She's, I can't even go live anymore. I'm so mad at you. I'm just going to skip the whole thing. How am I supposed to go live when I'm mad at you? And I kept saying, you're feeling very mad. You're feeling this. You're feeling that. And gradually she started to calm down. And I was like, listen, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to do that. I apologize. You were feeling blah, blah, blah. And then within a minute or two, she she took a few deep breaths and we ended up going live and having a good broadcast.
So that's really cool. A couple of things to think about. Normally, I tell people don't apologize, don't take responsibility until you've got people completely calmed down. Because
Okay,
when
so
we
I'm learning.
apologize, appease, justify, explain, rationalize to somebody who's really upset, we're basically invalidating them.
Oh, I was saying I'm sorry because it was my fault. I wasn't invalidating. I was
No, no,
agreeing
no.
with her.
It can be totally your fault, but they're not ready to hear it yet. They've got to be ready to hear the apology. They've got to be ready to hear you take personal responsibility for the problem. But when they're escalated, their prefrontal cortex is offline. And they don't need to hear your apology. What they need to hear is that somebody really gets them from their frame of reference. That's all they need. They need that time for the prefrontal cortex to come back online. And the only thing that does that is affect labeling. So you did it perfect. I just wouldn't have apologized. I would have waited. I would have waited until she was really calmed down after the show and say, can we talk about this for a minute? And then I would have had a conversation. I would have affect labeled her some more. Then I would have, if it was appropriate, I'd say, well, I want to apologize.
It was my fault.
It was on me. My mistake. How would you like to prevent this problem from arising again? And you move into problem solving. And that's how I would do it. We jump too quickly to problem solving. And apology is a form of problem solving because we're trying to soothe our own anxiety around the other person's upset. We want the problem to go away. If I apologize, the problem will go away. No, it won't. Sorry. Apology doesn't work that way. So save it. Just focus on their emotions. Focus on validating what they feel in the moment. They'll calm down, and then when it's appropriate, you can sit down and have a conversation about what happened, how to prevent it from happening again, how to make things right, whatever needs to happen. But don't jump to that problem solving until they are totally calm and you've got the time and space to talk about it.
That is really helpful. You talk about ignoring the words. That can be challenging when someone is
Yelling at your face and telling you what a MF you are and how stupid you are and what an idiot you are and spitting
sure.
at
So
you. Oh, yeah.
I don't have that. Some of those I did not experience, thankfully. My wife is wonderful. But how do you ignore the words when what if they're right or when if it's about
You
you
have
and
to,
they're right?
you have to not worry about whether they're right or wrong. This is not about truth telling or truth seeking. This is not a courtroom right now. They're in an emotional state. What they need more than anything else is to be heard and validated. And so it does take a little practice, but not a lot. What you learn is to just ignore what they're saying. You've heard these nasty words many, many times before. You probably said them yourself. You can just turn off your ears. You don't even need to hear it. And what happens is that as you practice this, you see that it works until eventually you get to a place when somebody gets reactive and argumentative. Instead of having a defensive fight reaction, you have a compassion reaction. And all of a sudden all of a sudden now you're just automatically thinking, oh, you're really angry and upset. My wife and I almost never have problems, but last night I said something that she took the wrong way, and she was really tired, and I probably wasn't as artful as I could have been. And so we had to unpack it and work through it. But I took no offense at her being upset at what I said. Zero. And in my past life, that would have been it. I would have stomped out of the room saying, screw you and the horse you rode in on, because I did nothing wrong, right? But you just learn that it's not about you. It's not about you. They can be naming you, shaming you, blaming you, doing whatever they want, but it's not about you. You have to learn how to ignore all of that. And it just comes with practice, and not a lot of practice. And name what they're feeling. They'll calm down, and things will settle down. You'll feel the peace settle in the room, and then you can go about solving the problem.
Is a beautiful thing. I can't wait to keep putting it into practice and keep getting better at it. For you've achieved so much and helped so many people. What's the biggest challenge you're facing right now?
Getting this out there. My goal, I'm 75 years old. I'm in perfect health. I actually have the biological age of probably a 50-year-old. My goal in life is to teach 10 million people these skills.
Wow.
I mean, think about it, Seth. Think about the polarization in our society. We're not going to get any help from our state capitals or from our political leaders. They thrive on the polarization. So, and I know everybody hates it. I hate it. You hate it. I don't care whether you're far left progressive, far right MAGA. We hate the polarization. It's uncomfortable and it's tearing families apart, and we're losing ourselves. What if, instead of arguing over who's right and who's wrong, we simply listen to each other? Because when I validate your emotions, I don't have to agree with you. But I can tell you what you're feeling because that is your truth. And when you listen to my feelings, you can violently disagree with me. But you're validating who I am as a human being. Instead of dismissing you and throwing you away and dehumanizing you, I turn you into somebody who's worthy. Worthy of being listened to, worthy of being validated, worthy of being heard. And you do the same thing for me. Imagine what our communities would be like if we had 10 million people able to do that in every single church, every single synagogue, every single school, workplace around the country. It'd be a very different place. That's my goal.
Your passion is obvious. That is a phenomenal goal. For our folks who are watching or listening, where is the best place for them to go learn about you and the De-Escalate book and all the amazing work you're doing in the world?
The what I'm going to do, I got to write this down so I don't forget. I'm going to do it as soon as we're done with the podcast. I'm going to put up a page on my website. It's going to be dougnoll.co/Seth. Well, just put it Seth, S-E-T-H, small s. Go to that website. Go to that page. It'll redirect you to a page on my website. And on that page, you'll be able to get buy a copy of De-Escalate. There's a free ebook that describes all this stuff. You can join the De-Escalate Academy, which is absolutely free. It's a community where people are coming to learn how to do this stuff. If you want to take some more advanced video courses, they're offered there. If you want to have a Zoom call with me, my link for scheduling a call with me is there. All on one page, single stop destination, dougnoll.co/Seth. Do that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We greatly appreciate the gift and the gift of your presence and your work in the world. Thank you. This has been Seth Greene with Doug Noll, dougnoll.co/Seth. Thank you, Doug, for joining us.
Happy to be here, Seth. Thanks for having me on.
Our pleasure. Thank you, everyone, for watching or listening. We will talk to you or see you next time.
Why do so many businesses struggle while others seem to explode overnight? Do you wish you had the secret to this type of exponential growth? Now, I've scaled more than 20 businesses to over $100 million, and it's not just luck. In my new book with Mark Tim, Mentor to Millions, you'll learn the repeatable framework I use in all my business ventures for massive success. Order at kevinmentor.com and get over $1,000 in bonuses. Head to kevinmentor.com.